The galactic arena is alive with a cacophony of alien voices, an unearthly symphony of languages blending into an overwhelming roar. Spectators from across the galaxy fill the towering stands, their eyes fixed on the sprawling battlefield below. The arena is a marvel of engineering, a shifting landscape of steel, rock, and fire, designed to test the limits of every species' endurance and ingenuity. In the commentator's box, a Zerthian observer begins their analysis, their voice dripping with disdain as they focus on the humans stepping into the arena. The Zerthian's tone is almost pitying. Behold, they announce to the audience, the representative of Earth, a fragile, tool-dependent species that dares to call itself a competitor in this sacred contest. This is not a warrior. This is a novelty. The human, Lieutenant Grace Carter, walks with a calm confidence that seems out of place against the grandeur and chaos of the arena. She's unarmored, clad in a simple tactical suit reinforced only by patches of ceramic plating. Her weapons are laughably modest. A compact combat knife, sheathed at her hip, and a utility belt loaded with mundane tools. In contrast, her competitors stand as towering testaments to their species' might. Hulking reptilian brutes with scales like armor plates, insectoid combatants equipped with bioorganic weaponry, and cyborg warriors glistening with augmented power, all radiate an aura of lethal intent. Carter's presence, understated and unimposing, elicits laughter from the crowd. She doesn't posture or roar. She doesn't raise her fist in a show of bravado. She simply waits as the arena gates close behind her, her sharp eyes scanning the terrain ahead with quiet intensity. The Zerthian commentator sneers, addressing their audience again. Observe the fragility of this creature. No claws, no exoskeleton, no natural armor. It doesn't even call itself a warrior. What hope does it have against champions bred for battle? Carter ignores the jeers. Her focus is absolute. This isn't her first impossible fight, and she knows it won't be her last. Humanity's history has been forged in adversity, from surviving against predators on a hostile Earth to weathering wars and cataclysms. The galactic audience doesn't know it yet, but she's prepared for their scorn. The arena begins to shift, the ground beneath her feet trembling as massive gates open to release the first challenge. From the shadows emerge the Zenthra wolves, sleek predators engineered for speed and ferocity. Their fangs glint under the artificial sunlight, their blood-red eyes locked on Carter as they spread out in a predatory formation. The crowd leans forward in anticipation, expecting a brief, bloody spectacle. But Carter doesn't move in fear or panic. Instead, she steps back, surveying her surroundings. Her hands move with practiced efficiency, pulling a length of cable from her belt and securing it to a jagged piece of metal protruding from the ground. She works quickly, every movement deliberate, ignoring the wolves as they encircle her. The first wolf lunges. Carter sidesteps, her trap springing into action. The cable tightens, snagging the creature's legs and sending it crashing into a sharp outcrop. She doesn't stop to gloat. There's no time. As the second wolf attacks, she uses the fallen predator's body as a shield, deflecting the assault and retaliating with a quick, decisive strike of her knife. From the commentator's box, there's a moment of stunned silence. The Zerthian's tone shifts, curiosity seeping through their derision. Primitive tools but precise application. Is this improvisation? Carter continues, adapting to the shifting terrain and using the wolves' aggression against them. Each kill is calculated, each movement efficient. The predator's speed and ferocity mean nothing when their strength is turned against them. By the time the last wolf falls, the arena is silent. Carter straightens, blood-smeared but unbowed. She glances up at the spectators, her expression unreadable. The Zerthian commentator, for the first time, sounds unsettled. Perhaps there is more to this human than meets the eye. The arena shifts with a deep, mechanical groan, the ground fracturing into uneven slabs that rise and fall unpredictably. Carter stands motionless for a moment, her sharp gaze taking in the rapidly transforming battlefield. A thick, greenish mist begins to seep from unseen vents, coiling through the labyrinth now forming around her. The toxic haze hisses like a living thing, and the alien crowd erupts into cheers as the second challenge is revealed. The toxic maze is infamous, a twisting network of corridors designed to disorient and destroy. Its walls shift and reposition without warning, crushing anything caught between them. The mist clings to the ground, lethal to most life forms without specialized respiratory systems. The other competitors charge ahead, their natural or technological adaptations allowing them to plow through the poison without hesitation. Carter, in contrast, crouches low, pulling her jacket over her nose and mouth. Her fingers move quickly, unzipping a pouch on her belt and retrieving a roll of tape and a small packet of absorbent powder. In moments, she fashions a makeshift filter by lining the fabric with the powder, securing it tightly around her face. It's a crude solution, but one that works well enough to keep her moving. Her movements are deliberate as she navigates the maze, pausing at every corner to listen for shifting walls and the footsteps of her competitors. She notes the glowing patterns on the floor, realizing they signal the upcoming movements of the maze. Where others might rely on brute strength or speed, Carter uses observation and patience, studying the deadly puzzle and predicting its traps. Ahead, a cybernetically enhanced alien barrels through the mist, its respirators humming as it tears down a section of the maze. The crowd roars in approval as it smashes through an obstruction, creating a shortcut. Carter doesn't follow. Instead, she takes a longer, winding path, avoiding areas where the mist thickens and the floor's patterns grow erratic. In one corner of the maze, she spots another competitor, an insectoid alien with gleaming carapace armor. The creature is caught off guard as a wall slams shut, pinning it in place. Carter hesitates only for a moment before moving on, knowing she can't afford to stop. Survival is her priority, and she knows that this challenge is as much about endurance as it is about cunning. The mist thickens, and the maze's walls close in faster, their movements becoming more unpredictable. Carter's breathing is shallow, her makeshift filter straining to keep the toxins at bay. Sweat beads on her forehead as she climbs over a fallen slab, her muscles burning with effort. The Xerthian commentator's voice crackles through the arena's speakers, their tone tinged with reluctant admiration. While the others charge blindly into danger, the human creeps through like a scavenger. It relies not on strength, but on calculation. How very human. As Carter rounds a final corner, the exit looms ahead, a towering gate guarded by two automated sentinels. The sentinels scan for movement, their laser sights cutting through the mist. Carter freezes, observing their patterns. She pulls a small reflective disc from her belt and tosses it to the side, drawing their attention away from her position. In that moment of distraction, she sprints forward, sliding beneath the gate just as it begins to close. The crowd erupts in a mixture of shock and excitement, the first competitor to clear the maze without sustaining injury. Carter leans against the wall, catching her breath as the toxic mist dissipates behind her. Above, the commentator's voice falters, the smugness replaced by a grudging respect. This human survives where others falter. But how much longer can such fragile ingenuity last? The arena resets once more, the maze dissolving into the floor as the next challenge takes shape. A towering alien steps into view, a warrior from the Krogan species, known for their immense strength and brutal combat styles. Karath the Mighty, a champion of his kind, looms over Carter, his cybernetically enhanced frame gleaming under the arena's harsh lights. The audience erupts into cheers, their chants echoing through the massive Colosseum. Karath flexes his massive claws, his confidence radiating with every deliberate step toward her. Carter's eyes narrow, but her body remains relaxed, her stance neutral. She doesn't rise to his taunts as he pounds his chest and roars in her direction. "Human, you are no warrior," Karath growls, his voice amplified by his helmet speakers. "You've stumbled through this competition with luck and tricks. Now you face true strength." Karath charges, his massive bulk thundering across the arena. Carter doesn't meet his advance head-on. Instead, she sidesteps at the last moment, rolling to avoid his outstretched claws. His momentum carries him forward, and he nearly crashes into a wall before spinning around with surprising agility for his size. The crowd cheers louder, relishing the clear mismatch. But Carter doesn't allow herself to be distracted. Her movements are precise, her strikes calculated as she probes for weaknesses. Karatha's cybernetic enhancements give him an edge in speed and power, but they also make him predictable. Each strike is designed to overpower, each attack assuming that his opponent will be crushed beneath his strength. Carter uses his overconfidence against him. She stays just out of reach, forcing him to overextend with every swing. The alien crowd begins to murmur, their excitement giving way to confusion as the fight drags on. Karatha's attacks grow less precise, his breathing heavier as he expends energy in fruitless attempts to catch her. Carter takes note of the faint hum coming from his armor's power core, the glow of his augmentations dimming slightly with each exertion. She shifts her approach, using the arena's debris to her advantage. She lures him into a section of jagged terrain, her smaller frame allowing her to weave through the obstacles with ease. Karath, on the other hand, struggles to maneuver, his bulk making him an easy target. When he lunges again, Carter counters with a quick, decisive strike to one of the exposed cables on his arm. Sparks fly as his prosthetic hand twitches uncontrollably, his grip weakened. He roars in frustration, the crowd falling into stunned silence as the human begins to press her advantage. Carter doesn't let up. She uses his momentary distraction to close the distance, targeting the joints in his armor with her knife. Each strike is precise, designed to disable rather than kill. Karath stumbles, his movements growing more erratic as his systems begin to fail. Finally, she maneuvers behind him, using his own weight against him to force him to the ground. Her blade hovers at the base of his neck, the fight decisively over. The arena falls silent, the crowd too shocked to react. Karath growls weakly, his pride shattered. Carter steps back, lowering her weapon, but keeping her stance guarded. She doesn't gloat, doesn't roar in victory. She simply watches as Karath struggles to his knees, his augmentations sparking and failing. The commentator's voice breaks the silence, their tone filled with disbelief. This is no brute's victory. This human fights with precision, strategy. It wastes no energy, shows no arrogance. Perhaps it is not a warrior. Perhaps it is something more. Carter says nothing, her face calm as she waits for the next challenge to begin. The arena undergoes its final transformation. The floor splits apart, revealing an intricate series of platforms suspended over a vast, churning void of molten energy. Mechanical arms rise from the depths, shifting the platforms randomly, some spinning, others tilting dangerously. Above, automated sentinels armed with plasma cannons sweep the area, their sensors glowing as they search for targets. The announcer declares this challenge the ultimate test, designed not for survival, but to ensure no competitor escapes unscathed. Carter steps onto the first platform, her movements measured as she observes the chaos ahead. The platforms are unstable, each one a potential death trap, while the sentinels create a constant threat from above. Other contestants, those who survive this far, scatter across the arena. Some attempt to brute force their way forward, leaping recklessly between platforms, only to be struck down by sentinels or plunge into the molten depths below. Carter doesn't rush. She studies the movement of the platforms, noting the rhythm of their shifts and the sentinels' scanning patterns. Her eyes narrow as she calculates the timing needed to avoid both the unstable surfaces and the relentless firepower overhead. With a burst of speed, she leaps to the next platform, landing lightly before crouching low to reduce her profile. A sentinel sweeps toward her, its cannon charging. Carter reaches into her belt, pulling out a small reflective shard scavenged from earlier challenges. She throws it high into the air, catching the light and redirecting the sentinel's attention. The plasma bolt meant for her strikes a nearby platform instead, sending debris cascading into the void. The crowd watches in stunned silence as Carter advances, her movements deliberate and efficient. Unlike the others, she doesn't waste energy on unnecessary risks. When a platform tilts unexpectedly, she adjusts her stance, using her low center of gravity to maintain balance. When a Sentinel's patrol path changes, she halts, pressing herself flat against the surface until it moves on. Midway through the gauntlet, a section of the arena collapses, separating her from the next platform. She glances down at the swirling molten energy below, then at the remaining contestants far ahead, some already nearing the finish. Taking a deep breath, she retrieves a length of cable from her belt, tying it securely to a fragment of debris. With precise aim, she throws it toward a protruding arm of a sentinel, hooking it in place. The crowd gasps as Carter swings across the gap, her trajectory perfect. She releases the cable at the right moment, landing on the next platform and rolling to absorb the impact. The Xerthian commentator's voice cracks with uncharacteristic excitement. Incredible! It does not rely on strength or technology, but on resourcefulness. What an unpredictable creature. The final stretch is the most dangerous. The Sentinels cluster near the finish, their sensors locking onto anything that moves. Carter crouches behind a piece of fallen machinery, her mind racing. She retrieves the last item in her belt, a compact flare. Striking it against the platform, she tosses it high into the air. The brilliant light confuses the Sentinels, their targeting systems faltering as they track the unpredictable movement. Using the distraction, Carter sprints forward, leaping between the last platforms with unwavering focus. The final jump is the longest, the gap too wide for any normal competitor. But Carter doesn't hesitate. She pushes off with all her strength, twisting midair to grab the edge of the final platform. Her fingers grip the edge tightly as she hauls herself up, her muscles straining with effort. The crowd erupts into chaos. Some cheer wildly, others scream in disbelief. The Xerthian commentator's voice is barely audible over the noise. It has done the impossible. A being without claws, without armor, without enhancement, has conquered the gauntlet. Carter stands at the finish, her chest heaving as she catches her breath. She doesn't acknowledge the audience or the commentator. Her gaze is steady, her expression calm. This victory isn't about them. It's about proving what humanity is capable of. As the arena resets and the Sentinels power down, the commentator's tone softens, almost reverent. It doesn't call itself a warrior because it transcends such a title. It is something more, a survivor, a creator, a force to be reckoned with. It is human. Carter turns and walks away, leaving the stunned silence of the arena behind her.